Okay, welcome everybody back from the lunch. Hope you had your stomachs full with the food. Great.
They look well fed. Yep.
And the next presentation is from Rob Gietema, and the title is How Can AI Be Used in Content Management Systems? Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Yes, indeed. So I'm gonna show you a bit about what AI. I mean, everybody's using AI, right? So, or they try to do AI. It's like a hype, and everybody's like, I want to jump in, but what can it actually do for you? I mean, just adding the label AI doesn't do anything, right? So you actually have to be practical. So, what is AI? It's like there's all sorts of different things which you can. It's more like a container thingy. Machine learning is one of them. Large language models, that's mainly what, if people are talking about AI nowadays, it's mainly large language models what they're talking about. But AI has way more options than that, which we'll not go into. So at the base of most of those large language models and a lot of machine learning as well, there's usually neural networks. So basically you have an output layer, you have some input, and you have a neural network in between, which is formed by training. So depending on what you want the network or the model to do, you add training parameters and a lot of data for LLMs, for example, to actually generate the correct output. So there's actually quite a lot of different models. Most we know are the generic ones, so there's large language models, but there's also some different models or models who can do more than one thing. So another would be image generation, video generation. We have model, we do image recognition, so that's another thing which is slightly different. We have embedding, what it is I will show later. But these are all different types of LLMs. So looking at generic LLMs, you probably know these three. They are like commercial products backed by, well, usually bigger companies. And there's also some open source or open models like DeepSeek and Qwen. Those two are, as I said, local LLMs, which means you can actually run them on your own machine. Or on another server. So what do you actually need to run those? You need a model, obviously, so that's one of the training models which is produced, and you need some kind of software, like a runner, to actually run that model and to be able to use it. So first, a model. I here take Qwen as an example. So as you can see, the sizes on the left, so if you have like the full Qwen model, is 142 gigabytes, which is quite a lot, and it has to fit in memory, and not just any memory, but in memory which ideally your graphic cards can handle. So that's quite a lot. So usually when you select a local LLM model, depending on your system, obviously, you maybe want to try a scaled down version. Scaled down or a smaller model usually means it's faster, but it's less accurate. So you can choose, do I want speed or do I want accuracy? And you can make, and what hardware do I have? I mean, if you don't have a machine, I mean, I don't have a machine with 142 gigabytes of video memory, then you probably need to get into something else. You do, right? Yeah, so the Mac is really good for that because it's universal memory, which can be used as for that. So the runner, there's multiple runners which you can use to run a model locally. I'm using Ollama. It's command line based, and I like it to set it up that way. So you basically install Ollama on your Mac or on your Linux or on your Windows machine, and then you have some command line options, and you can pull models. So in this case, I will pull a model. In this case, Qwen 3. You can specify a version there or pull any other model, and when you do, and you have Ollama, this will start Ollama, and then you have an API endpoint where you can call the calls. So in this case, it's the chat endpoint, but there's also a generate endpoint and an embedding endpoint, etc. And you can use them there. So then you have either have your ChatGPT or you have your local LLM set up, but now what? So how do I integrate that into my CMS? So you need a backend to connect to, which more or less proxies the requests or adds some functionality to it. Well, there we go. It's not Plone, sorry. As some of you know, I created a system called Nick, which is a headless CMS. It's built not with Python, but with Node.js and PostgreSQL, which is an important part I will get to later. And the REST API is fully compatible with the Plone REST API. So it's like a drop-in replacement for Plone in the backend, and you can use Volto on top of that. And really important, it has support for all sorts of different AI functionality, sorts of different AI models in this case. So if you install Nick and run Nick, then you can, in your configuration file, you can set up some different models. So in this case, we set up the generic LLM model, which is Qwen 3. We provide the API endpoint, and we have some other settings if we want to. And then in Nick, we have an endpoint called, in this case, @chat, and we basically provide a prompt, and we can specify some context and some other information. And what we get in return is the response from our local LLM. So in this case, I asked what's the largest land animal, and apparently it's the African bush elephant. I get some other information there as well, provided context, and if it's the end of the sentence. If I do this and I want to show it in a UI, then it will return the whole thing, and it would be better if I do that one by word, right? So I have see what's happening. So there's also, the endpoints also support streaming, so you will get parts of your response, which you can already show in the UI, and then when it's finally done, then you can say, okay, this is it, and then close it up. So this is an example. So this is Volto, slide customization theme, but more or less the same. In the bottom right corner, you have an icon with an assistant, and underneath you have a prompt, and I can basically type in the question, which I did now, like what's the largest land animal. It will get me a result, and it will output it there. That's the basic setup. Not very useful at the moment, but it's the start. All right, next up. Chat history. So if I have a conversation with an LLM, I wanted that it knows the rest of my conversation. So in this case, I can also provide my previous messages to the LLM, so it knows what conversation he has, so it knows a bit about the context. So for example, I asked what's the largest land animal, it answered is the African bush elephant, and then if I ask it, tell me a bit about them, then it knows that if I tell them that it will mean the African bush elephants and not something else. So same thing, I get the results, same results as before, and I ask them another question, and it will tell me a bit about the elephants. Then next up, I'm really lazy, so I don't want to type everything. So maybe speech recognition would be nice, right? So I can just press the button and it will do that for me. I tried all sorts of different models with speech recognition and everything, and then I just noted that it's built into your browser, at least in Chrome and in Firefox and all the ones. It's just there. It's just an object on your window object, and it works relatively well, at least for this use case. So you can, in the front end, you can can initiate the speech recognition, and you get the handlers which are shown below. So you have a result handler which will provide you all the different chunks, usually a word, but sometimes two words, and it has a handler on the end. So when it's silent for a certain amount of time, it says it's finished, and then you can do something with it. So here you can see the demo. I added a small microphone icon over there. When you press it, you can say something. So this is actually, you don't hear the audio, but this is actually I used the microphone to set it in. And then it will just do that. And if you pause for a couple of seconds, then it will say it's the end of the sentence, and it will submit the answer there. All right, so next up regarding AI image and video generation, meaning to generate images on the fly, which is very useful. For example, if you want to create lead images, for example, or anything else in your CMS. Problem is it's relatively slow and it's hardware intensive. So that means like most of the queries which you do for an LLM or you do with other models, it's relatively fast, but generating an image is not something you want your user to wait for. It's not like they press the button. It could take seconds, minutes, or even longer depending on how complex or what kind of hardware you have. So I didn't implement it yet, but maybe if there will be some background tasks and everything, then that could be implemented, but it's something for something else. Then embeddings. So what are they? Embeddings is a way to categorize or to put, to label certain context. So I can have a piece of text, for instance, let's say a page in total, and I can put it into a position somewhere in a, well, this is like a representation of a three-dimensional space. So that means that, for instance, if you look at the left, like the cats and the dogs are relatively close to each other because they're kind of similar but slightly different. And on the other side, we have apples and bananas, for example, which is fruit, but then like the apple, the fruit, and apple, the brand are also together, but not fully together. So everything which is kind of related is placed in that area together. So you can do matches about how close it is together. Now, this is only 3 dimensions, but when you do embeddings, you want to have loads of dimensions, which we can't visualize, but you could do, I don't know, 700 different dimensions in there. So how to use them in the CMS? So we can use an embedding model. What does that do? It basically inputs text and it outputs a vector of X amount of dimensions. And we can index all our content using those embeddings. So what we need for that is an embedding model. So we do, in this case, this is also using Olama. We configure the model in Nick as well. And we have to store that content somewhere. This is where Postgres comes in. Postgres has a module or an add-on or an extension called PG Vector, which has support for vector fields. And you can store those vector fields and you can actually do queries with it as well, which is quite nice. So you can enable it like this. In Nick, we'll create an index. So it's like a catalog index in Plone. Same way, in this case, we have the attribute a searchable text. So it will fetch all the searchable text from that content item. And the type of the index is an embedding. So it will not index the text, but it will actually create an embedding of that searchable text. And then we have the name, which is embedding at this point. And maybe a bit small font, but this is the view into the database. And you can see on the right, we have an awesome vector with a lot of dimensions, in this case, 768 dimensions, with all values about how it matches. So that's really nice when we have these fancy numbers in the database, but what do we do with them? Search, we can use it in search. So what do? When we do have a search query, we basically have our query. We create from that query the user entered, we also create an embedding. Then we have 2 vectors, and we can compare those 2 vectors, how similar they are. And we order them by similarity, so the more similar they are, the higher we want them in the results to be, and we can limit it. So we don't want everything, but let's say we want, if it matches at least 60%, then we want to have the result returned, and that's all configured in your model. And then Postgres can do it just in a select query. So you can basically, there's the operator. Can you see my cursor? Yeah, this one. It will just compare those 2 vectors. So we just say how similar is this vector to the other vector. And you can, and you do a cutoff, so the minimum has to be at least 0.6, for example, and order by similarity. And then you could do stuff like this. So basically, this is a search page. I searched for meetings, in this case, which is not in the content, but events is. And that's apparently 60%-ish comparable to events. So I don't have to search for the exact term, but I can search for something similar, and this will match that result. Image recognition. Yeah, there's also models which can do image recognition. So normally when a user uploads a lot of images, then you have a big database with images, but finding them is like really hard. So what can image recognition do? So this is the text on the right that's generated from the image on the left. So it says the picture is a sleep laptop, blah, blah, blah. So it will actually see what's actually on that page. And it's very useful because how can we use it? We use an image recognition model. We store the generated text of what the actual image was. We index the generated text as searchable text. Then we use the generated text as an embedding as well. And then we have the embedding there. We can do that using yet another model. This is the last one, I promise. It's an image generation model called Lava. You can configure it in Nix as well. And if all went well, what you can do now is I create an image or an image object in Plone. I provide a title, which is not telling anything about the image. I select the image. If I can find it somewhere underneath the screen, but it'll find it. There we go. That's the laptop image I showed earlier. I press save. So what it does, it uploads the image, does the image recognition, and the image is there. And now if I search in the top right, it provides me, and I search for the word laptop, which I didn't enter anywhere, but it does find it in the search results. Next up, RAG, also one of the buzzwords. So what is it? LLMs are usually trained once, and no information has been added since. So that means all the information is just up until that standard and nothing is added later, or it has to be retrained again and re-released. So LLMs are also not aware of private data. So LLMs are trained with public data, sometimes not so public, but that's lawsuits, right? Anyway, but if you have private data, it's not indexed, so you can't query it. And what RAG does, it combines the LLMs with provided relevant data, which you provide yourself. And the data is provided in the context. So how does that work in the UI? So what I can do here, for example, I added the page as context. So you have the context which you can see on the left. I added that in as context to my query. And I asked, what is the username of this site? Because I added the context on the left, and in the text it says what the username is, the LLM actually knows. And it can provide the LLM with some relevant data into there. So that's the context of the current page I am at. Next up, site context. Maybe I want to know something about which is in my site. So what do? The query I'm asking in the assistant, I create an embedding of that question. I'm looking up relative documents based on the embedding. So I'm matching again the embedding in the database with the embedding of my question. I get the text, like the searchable text of those documents, and I paste that text into my query again in the LLM. So I have one call which does the embedding and one call to the LLM providing those data. So in this example, as you can see, I extended the assistant. We have the page context and we have the site context, which are both different, and you can enable or disable it in this case. And if I ask it the question, what can I find on this site? It will fetch all the relative information for me, add it into the context, and it gives me a summary of everything which is there. So in this case, apparently there's some news items in this site, there's a welcome message, some demo events, etc. So that's the information it's getting from there. Next up, we can also add custom context. So let's say you want to write a news item, or you want an article and you have a really fancy PDF already of it. What you can do is you can upload the PDF to your assistant and ask it, what's the info in the attachment? So it will provide you some paragraphs of that PDF, which you can use later. Maybe I will show you. So this is all questions, and it's all in the site, which is really nice and all, but what you can actually do with that content. So here I will give you an example how it can be used as a content editor. So I'm creating a page here, and I'm asking in the virtual assistant, I'm asking, so write me some paragraphs. Yep, write me some paragraphs about elephants. Elephants is the theme here, as far as you remember. It generates some paragraphs. Then what I can do, I can hover over those, and there's a toolbar there. So I can basically copy the text and paste it in the text field, right? So that's the simplest solution there. Another option is there, the last icon is paragraph, and it will just insert a block. So it will insert the whole text into to my content. You can also add, if it has multiple paragraphs, there's also a button way on the top to insert all the paragraphs there, which is a shortcut. Next up, we can ask it, suggest a title for this page. So in this case, it's just a title. And then the second button in the toolbar here is set this one as a title. So it will actually fetch that text and set it as a title. And there's one more button left, which I didn't show. It will show it now. That's regarding the description. And we ask it, like, write a summary of this page. And it will generate a way too long summary, which is really nice, not so nice for this. So I ask it, make it way shorter. There we go. So there we go, shorter summary. We can use this, use the third button over there, which sets this piece of text as a summary. And it will add it there. So these are like shortcuts in where you can actually use it while editing your context. Then yesterday was a talk about, I'm not sure if Alexander is here. Yes, he is, about prompts in the UI using TinyMC, and I really like the idea, so I stole it from you. I implemented it in Nick as well, so we now have a similar to your implementation, an AI control panel there, where you can set pre-filled prompts, so you can have some prompts which you can add and edit in your control panel, so you can provide some stuff like give me a summary or translate this message or add fancy headings or anything like that. And that is now accessible in the editor there as well. So you press the little pull down icon and it will show up all the predefined prompts which you can use. Last part is tools. That's another thing in which LLMs can do. They can provide tools. So what are tools? Tools can be executed or more or less provided to LLMs, and tools are things, it's not so much of getting information, but more actions you can do. And you can define tools and pass it into your LLM. You can define which parameters those tools have. And you can add that to your chat call. When you do, you get a result back, and the LLM doesn't execute those actions, but it will tell you which tools you should be calling. And then you can call those tools. And you can execute them either on the server or on the client or whatever you want. So what does a tool look like? So this is the tool which is defined in Vault on the front end. So in this case we have an action called edit the page. And we have a handler, so this will just press the edit button, more or less, and it will have a message, so you get a pop-up with a message or which will show in your assistant. Then we have another is save this page, also very useful. Then the next one is set the title. So this is also a tool, but the difference with this one has parameters. So you can have, so the description is the tool, and the parameters are provided here. So yes, 1 minute. So there's a title, which I have to pass into, which is a string, and this has the description of what that is. So this is the assistant. I pressed edit this page and it jumps to the edit page. So I didn't press any of the other buttons, right? Now it says set the title to Hello Plone. When I press that, bam, the title in the edit screen is set to that. And I do save this page. So And if you combine this with the speech recognition, you can be super lazy. You can just price this. Kim likes this. Yeah, you can drink while you do this, indeed. Not sure about how the text will works, but you could. Yeah, so you just press the microphone icon and you can just sit back and just like make this page and make it cool and all that stuff. Yeah, so that's what this stuff can do. That's about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, and now questions for Rob.
No questions.
What star system have you?
Wait for the microphone.
I think I saw a question somewhere over here.
Okay,
there we go. It's called Sol. Maybe you've heard of it. From a planet called Terra.
Hi.
Yes, sorry.
No. So you did all your examples with Nick. Can you do it with Plone easily? Like, is it just
Yes.
like the REST API and then?
Somebody has to implement the endpoints, and then yeah.
Okay.
So there's two endpoints implemented, and I'm using just in this example only the chat endpoint. So if the chat endpoint will be implemented in the REST API, then it will work. Only thing is that you do have to implement the streaming as well, which I'm not sure if that's how that works in.
Yeah,
you can?
You need to configure your proxy server.
Okay. Okay, so talk to David and he'll tell you how. Yeah, and one other thing is that the only thing is that the embedding model needs to be, because I'm using SQL as a backend, right? So to do the vector and the comparing of the vectors, and Plone by default doesn't have a SQL database. I mean, you can do a rel storage, obviously, but then that's not slightly different. So you do need some custom work there, but it's definitely possible and not super hard. Yep, I think, personally. Well, for me it is because it's Python and I don't know anything about it, but for people who know Python, it should be easier. Yep. Any other questions? Yep.
Where's the code for the front end?
So all the code, everything is in the Nick repository.
Oh, so it's just like an add-on for both of it.
It's not an add-on at the moment, it's just, so Nick is the backend and it has a front-end folder where the front-end is, and it's just a custom site basically, and the add-on is there. It's not a separate add-on.
Oh, I see.
Volto add-on at the moment.
It's a Volto.
Yeah, indeed, just a proof of concept at the moment. Yeah. Any other questions? Yep.
Could you please wait for the
I think
microphone?
we have to need them, or else.
So visibly, you're creating one embedding for the entire document
Yes,
every time.
at the moment.
Have you considered splitting?
Yes, I have.
Paragraph.
So I talked to Tisha yesterday about how to do the chunks indeed. So, and another option would be to have it on a block basis and everything. But the problem is that currently Plone, like all the search results and everything, is the search result returns a page. So I have to. So it's a bit harder to implement, but it will be more specific to something, and the matches will be better for sure. Yeah. So I guess on a block, maybe a block would be, or maybe a paragraph in a block, or even so what the sizes would be better for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Nope. All right.
Okay, thank you. Give us an applause for Rob.
Thank you.